Ready, Clay? Ready, Frank? All right. Good morning, everyone. It is May 31st, 2022. We'll call the Wright County Board of Commissioners meeting to order. Please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right. Welcome, everyone. Nice to see a large attendance again. Our first order of business are the minutes from 5:17. Does anyone have any corrections to those minutes?
Madam Chair.
Yes. Mr.
Page 8 of 16 for the county board workshop.
Okay.
It, in the first paragraph there, it notes that I spoke to Bruce and it gives the last name of Kimmel. My understanding that last name should be Schwartzman. And he's possibly here today.
From BKV.
Right. So I'm not sure who Bruce Kimmel is, but for the,
Yeah, he's from Floridian,
No.
No. No.
He's a bonding
Yeah.
guy.
oh, okay, so for minute taking, the spelling on the last name should be SCHWAR, T as in Tom, Z, M as in Mary, AN. So everywhere throughout that, it says Kimmel should be Schwartzman. That's all I have,
you.
Madam Chair.
Thank you. Anyone else?
I'll make a motion to accept the minutes
Would that
Okay.
change?
with that change, yes.
I'll second.
Motion made by Commissioner Delyden, seconded by Commissioner Ketchmark. Any more discussion? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
All right. The minutes with that change are approved. All right. The agenda. Is there anything that anyone would like to remove or add? Go for it. Okay.
I'll make a motion to approve the agenda.
I'll second that.
Motion made by Commissioner Delyden, seconded by Commissioner Vetch. No discussion, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? That motion carries. The agenda is approved. Consent agenda. Would anyone like to remove anything for further discussion?
Madam Chair.
Commissioner Ketchmark?
Letter F, number 1, Health and Human Services request for discussion.
All right. Anything else?
Madam Chair,
Yes, Commissioner Wetter.
I'd like to pull B5 about ARPA.
I'm sorry, B5?
B as in boy.
Yep.
So the finance report,
The finance report?
are you looking at 6?
Well, it could be 5 or 6, both kind of.
All right. You'd like 5 and 6 removed?
Well, I suppose the finance report it ties
Well,
to the-
I guess because in the finance report, it really kind of explains
Okay.
it a little bit better, and I want a little more explanation.
All right. We have
I'll make
items removed.
a motion to approve the consent agenda with the 2 items removed.
All right. Motion made by Commissioner Delyden,
I'll second.
second by Commissioner Ketchmark. No more discussion. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All right. We will take, in order, B5 and 6. Commissioner
Okay.
Wetter.
Okay, Madam Chair. In the monthly finance report for March and April, in the last paragraph, when they kind of talk about the whole, outline the whole budget report, they talk about ARPA and the grant application to request the second half. And I guess I was, excuse me, my voice here. Anyways, trying to remember now. What, if somebody could answer, like, do you have to spend down practically all of it before you can ask for the second half, or doesn't it matter? I don't know the rules, so.
Good morning, Madam Chairman, Commissioners. No, Commissioner Wetter, you do not have to. You just we have to request the second half of our allocation, and that's merely what I did. We do not have to spend the funds down before we request the second half.
Okay, and then now that you've requested, about how long will it take before you get that, see those?
Usually it's a couple weeks at the most.
Okay.
I haven't seen it yet, but I'll let you
Okay.
know when we do.
Okay, thank you. That's all I really had to ask. It was easy questions, some easy questions, so thank you.
Okay, thank you.
You're all good? All right. Commissioner Ketchmark?
Yes.
One.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I had some questions about the plan and the intent with the travel request here today. I was looking at it over the weekend and spotted it on the consent agenda and read the background investigation. And is this a conference that you've been to before, or is there one same or similar every year that you go to, or?
Right, good morning, Commissioners. Jamie Goodrum, Health and Human Services. We have belonged to NACCHO for quite a while, and I'm not sure what the status, I think with COVID, potentially it wasn't in person for the last couple of years, but yes, we have sent staff to this conference in the past.
Okay. And it talks about the grant paying for the per diems and the travel expenses. Does it cover the employees' wages also?
No, this would cover their travel, I believe, and they're all in different grants. So Kelsey would cover up to $2,000 worth of travel, meals, and expenses, lodging, things like that. So the reason that we are here in front of the board is that this would be their time away from the office. So the county would be reimbursing, they'd be paying for their time, some of which is reimbursable, I'm sure, under different grants. But in this case, it would just be their salary, which is not reimbursable by these specific grants.
Okay. It got my attention because it's 3 members of administration, basically.
Well, Greg is an employee, and then Kelsey and Sarah are both, of course, management.
Well, supervisor, Greg, promotion coordinator?
Right, so he reports to John Young.
Okay. And you're going to present on the dental clinic?
Greg will be, yep.
Is that, do you know when that's going to be open? Is it going to be open by that time, or?
The last I heard, it was going to be open late summer.
Okay.
Yep.
Well, I had question that, what are we going to present on something that's in the
Well, I imagine a
process?
lot of it will be the process, the bonding process, and it was a very, I think a lot of you that were here for the last couple of years, very iterative
lengthy
process.
process.
Lengthy process, going back and forth, and it's one that I think has only been replicated a couple of times in Minnesota for a dental clinic. I think there's been other bonding money for other types of things, but I think we're only the second or third time that this has happened in Minnesota. And I think other states and other areas are just interested in kind of seeing how we did it. And it's the type of thing that NACCHO does is kind of bring best practices, so.
And unless it happened last week, but do we get that grant for that yet? For that dental clinic?
I can't speak to that. That would be, I would think
I
administration.
think everything's on
Elizabeth,
track,
or-
but I haven't heard that it's like in our pockets or anything like that yet.
Okay. I guess what I'm thinking is with the place in the works and not being opened yet, that it would be better served that we could bring more to a conference after this place is open, and we can tell how the whole process went. We could tell when we got the grant, what did these other supporting counties contribute, if anything, that we expect them to send people here, what did they do? And we can give some feedback on actually when this is up and running to share with folks across the country, rather than, hey, this is under construction, we expect this or we expect that.
And Commissioner, I think we have actually made so much progress that I think this is a timely time for us to go and talk about it with the end in sight. I will say that Blue Cross Blue Shield is they're paying for Greg Wise's time, and they're also paying for his hours, so the county doesn't pay for Greg's time right now. We have I believe $100,000 grant for 3 years for Greg's time, so. And they also, Blue Cross Blue Shield also donated $30,000.
Yeah.
They donated quite a bit of money toward the dental center as well. So I would say that given the fact that they're paying for his salary and they're paying for this trip, that it would be great for them to see the benefit of what they've been working toward, which is better dental care, not just in Wright County, but everywhere.
Madam Chair.
Yeah, Commissioner Vetch?
And I think the opening and the operations side of it, I mean, there's some value to that, but really the value to this is getting communities across the country to understand the funding gaps and that there is actually taxpayer savings to such an entity, in that getting people to educated on how many of the people actually go to emergency rooms and don't actually fix the problem. And I'm assuming that that's a large amount of the information, and then you're going to illustrate how you went about solving it and building the partnerships from nonprofits to working with the legislator to getting bonding funds, and then using local entity funds to make a holistic package.
I would imagine that's exactly what we'd be covering in this position, or in this conference.
So I think that's in a nutshell, correct, Commissioner Vetch? What we are presenting on is the process of being the strategist for any community health problem. We're using the dental clinic as the example as we go through the steps. So exactly, funding gaps, but the idea is the dental clinic is one example that we can step through, but then people can apply it to other problems that they might have in their home communities.
Madam Chair,
Well said. Yeah, Commissioner Delighty.
since the meeting isn't until towards the end of July, we'll be a lot farther along with the clinic. The money should be in our hands from the state, so I think it'd be a great program.
Yes.
I think it showcases our county and the work that we've done, which I think is good.
Yep.
Certainly, many efforts in Wright County have been recognized. I mean, like the safe schools, and,
schools,
I
yes.
mean, there's been so many efforts here that, other states have looked at to model. So I think that this is a great opportunity for us to present and to educate other states.
Madam Chair, I know my dentist is very excited about it opening. So, in fact, last time, which was just a few weeks ago, she asked when it was going to be ready, and I said I wasn't.
I get the
did
same
not know.
reaction.
Yeah,
My dentist too.
so they're very excited about it, and she actually has worked for a similar type of thing before. So
And I know they are, excuse me, Commissioner White, but I know they are down the path of bringing in some folks already. So I mean, I think the goal is in sight. And I think it's just part of this, the bonding phase that kind of is drawing things out. But I know that they're retaining staff and everything right now. So I mean, it's definitely moving forward.
Thank you.
Thank you.
good luck.
Any other
on the
questions?
trip.
Okay, thanks.
Madam Chair, I'll make a motion to approve that out-of-state travel.
All right, motion made by Commissioner Delighty,
I'll second.
second by Commissioner Wetter. Any more discussion? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
Aye.
All right, motion passes. Thank you, everyone. All right, moving on to our timed items. We have someone from Highway, Virgil. Oh, Chad is here.
Thank you, Commissioners. Virgil's on vacation today, so
Okay. Yeah, good morning, Chad.
pinch hitting for him. So we have two items today. The first one is the award of contract 2204. It's the safety turn lane projects at 3 locations. Bids were received on May 12th. Knife River out of Sauk Rapids is the low bidder. It's 3 intersections at 35 and 117, 37 and 117, and 75 and 8. Are there any questions regarding the award?
Madam Chair.
Commissioner Wetter?
I noticed that the bids were like 32, almost 33% over. That was the lowest bid, and then the other one was 53% over.
Yeah,
Is that what you're finding out right now? Is that a lot of these bids are higher than what was expected?
yes. And in this case, there's a couple of reasons. One is when we did our estimate probably 2 or 3 months ago, and then waiting for MnDOT approval to advertise, we probably should have updated our estimate based on the trend. And also, we were assuming, when we did our estimate, the quantities are a decent quantity, but they're spread out over 3 different locations with multiple mobilizations. So we probably should have bumped our estimate up more to account for the overall quantity is a decent quantity, but the fact that it's spread out over 3 locations means that we probably should have treated them each as 3 individual projects. So a little bit of both, but I still think with the 600 and plus thousand of safety funds, which depending on how the other bids come up, sometimes we do get more if it doesn't spent. But and then our state aid balance comedy, I think if they're still worthwhile projects, we should proceed.
Madam Chair, I'll make a motion to award contract 2204 to Knife River.
All right.
I'll second
Motion
it.
made by Commissioner Vetch, seconded by Commissioner Delyden. Any more discussion? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
All right.
All right,
That award is approved.
thank you.
And then you have a very complete report.
Yeah,
That's
so.
great. A lot of work.
Second item is the distribution of the 2021 Highway Department Annual Report, and then we'll follow up with another meeting to discuss any questions you might have and approve it. But today, we're just formally distributing it to the commissioners in accordance with our favorite Minnesota statute, 163.07 subdivision 7. So I'm sure you all got that memorized. But county highway engineer shall prepare and submit to the county board annually a full and complete report covering all county highway work. So that's what we're doing. And like I said, later on at a future board meeting within the next few weeks, we'll schedule another meeting for any revisions or questions you might have.
All right.
Madam Chair,
Mr. Ketchmark.
just one question for the record. Chad, thanks for coming in,
Yeah.
because this one, there's more people that can see it and read about it than a workshop off to the side. But I get questions about, like, the county plow trucks and what the turnover is when you trade them or sell them. Is it go by mileage or years? Some of the commentary is, hey, we got bright, shiny trucks. What's wrong with a little patch of rust if they still do the job? So
Correct.
just,
Nothing wrong with a little patch of rust. You're using salt and high corrosive, but good rule of thumb is if we have 26 plow trucks and we buy 2 a year, the oldest one is 13 years old. So if you do 1 a year, you're gonna have a plow truck that's almost 30 years old. So it's to stay ahead of it and stay ahead of our maintenance. So that's our rule of thumb. And it's not always two. There's been a few years we've only purchased one, but you're right. Rust is not an indicator of when we want to replace it. It's more wear and tear and amount of maintenance and downtime. So yeah, we can fix it, but then it's not on the road, doing what it's supposed to do. So, but yeah, anyways, we can cover any more questions you guys will have, and that's what the report is for, to kind of show where all our money goes and be accountable. So.
okay,
Yeah.
thank you.
Appreciate that.
I'll
bet.
make a motion to approve that 2021 annual report from the Highway Department.
Yeah, and actually, we don't need
Actually-
approval this one.
Oh.
We'll come back for the approval. This is just distributed to you and everybody else for review. So we'll come back later for the approval and send it to the state. Thanks.
Thank you.
All right, thanks.
All right. All right. Parks and Rec. We have Ross and Brad.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Commissioners, we have 2 items today. First one is a recommendation coming out of the Park and Recreation Commission meeting that was on May 9th. That's kind of the expanding the cancellation and refund policy. You'll see on page 2 of the minutes, the original policy and then the expansion. It also adds in a shelter cancellation fee. So the expansion goes to 14 days in advance for campground reservations. The fee would be $15, 7 to 13 days, 20, and then 0 to 6 days would be 25. And a breakdown of those fees is a parentheses next to that. And currently, I believe we do not have any shelter cancellation policies, so that just adds in the cancellation policy for 48 hours in advance. There'd be a penalty of $10, and then a cancellation of 48 or before the actual reservation would be no refund.
All right.
Madam Chair, I'll make a motion to approve the recommendations from May 9th Park Commission meeting.
All right. Motion made by Commissioner Delyden. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Commissioner Vetch. Any discussion on any of those items in the minutes? All right. Hearing none. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay. The minutes are approved, or
I'll make a
recommendations
motion.
are approved.
I'll make a motion to approve the cancellation and refund policy for the campground and shelter reservations.
All right. Motion made by Commissioner Delyden. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Second by Commissioner Wetter. Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? All right. That is approved.
And I'll make a motion to accept the donation in the amount of $1,250 from Hanover Lions Club for Memorial Bench at Riverside County Park in Hanover in memory of Willis Kippeth.
Okay.
I'll second.
Motion made by Commissioner Delyden, second by Commissioner Wetter to accept this donation and with thanks. Is there any discussion on that? Otherwise,
Madam Chair,
yes.
we're looking at changing the policy on the bench donation, and wasn't that part of this also?
No, not for that and those minutes and those recommendations, no.
Okay. Can you still donate a tree? I was reading about the criteria for doing benches and like this 1,250, it counts for a bench and then so many years of maintenance, right?
Correct, 10 years.
So I thought that was interesting after 10 or 20 years then, because it states how many years of maintenance. If something comes loose or the board breaks off, what's the process then after the paid time for the maintenance? Do you contact the donor again and say, hey, what'd you like to do? Or do you just fix it? Or how's that work?
It's a great question.
So-
For two.
Historically, when we hit the 10-year side, if one of the benches is in disrepair, we're gonna replace it with one of our benches, or if it's a bench that's no longer necessarily needed, then we might look at just removing it completely. If it's in good repair, if it's still in good shape, we just leave it be after 10 years. So we still do our normal maintenance as far as keeping around the pad, the concrete pad, those kind of things. So if somebody is wanting to re-up, then yes, they can contact us. I have not reached out to anybody in the past that's had one come up to say, hey, look, your 10 years is up. Would you like to pay for another 10 years? We just leave them in place until they're really in disrepair.
Okay. Thank you.
All right, so we have a motion and a second, and this is a resolution. Roll call vote, Commissioner Ketchmark.
Aye.
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 All right, resolution passes, and thank you for your time and your efforts.
Thank you.
Mr. Matt Detchen, Ag and Rec, Drainage. I'm glancing up at Parks and Rec here.
And other duties as
Yeah,
a son.
and other duties, yeah.
Good morning,
Well,
Madam.
he does rec drainage.
That I do. Good morning, Madam Chair, members of the board. I have two items for you on County Ditch 10. The first item is approve the findings and resolution to make minor alterations to County Ditch 10 pursuant to Minnesota Statute 163.17. So we would be acting as the petitioner in this proceeding, and we would need to schedule a public hearing, which is the second item.
I'll make a motion to approve the findings and resolution to make minor alterations. County ditch number 10 pursuant to Minnesota State Statute 163.17.
All right, motion made by Commissioner Delight. Is there a second on that?
Second.
Second by Commissioner Wetter. Any discussion, or
Madam Chair.
Commissioner Ketchmark?
Thanks, Matt, for coming in. So landowner feedback on this proposed alteration, because this is gonna potentially encroach further on the landowner there. Do we have that, or will we get that at the next?
Yeah, so the landowner in this case is the school. So we've already worked with them, a preliminary purchase easement agreement. So they are willing partners in that realignment. That would be approved at the public hearing, which has yet to be scheduled, but they are aware of it. And this is a public hearing, so everyone else, benefited landowners on County Ditch 10 would be notified through publishing in the newspaper.
And the other question is, with County Ditch 10 almost done, except for just some little touch-ups, where do we stand with this part of the project now coming up for alterations after we're so far past, all the equipment's gone, all the workers are gone? I guess I'm wondering why this wasn't realigned and the alteration done when it was designed, engineered, and all the people and equipment were there.
Yeah, absolutely. That's a great question. Yeah, like you said, Blackstone will be finishing up here in the next couple of weeks, and they'll be out. This would use a different contractor that Highway would be hiring. We did have conversations about this when we were originally planning repairs, going through the repair report process. Doing it through those repairs would have assessed the benefit of landowners to make that minor alteration. So at the time, we decided to do the repairs and see if that would be a reoccurring issue, and it obviously has been. So the funding source for now would be through the American Rescue Plan, through LOST, instead of assessing it to the benefit of landowners to realign the ditch.
Okay, that's helpful. So that's already been approved, that the payment for that from ARP?
Yep.
Okay.
Yep, it's one of my items that was approved by the board a while back now.
Okay.
I don't remember exactly when, but yep.
All right. Thank you. That's all I had.
All right, I would look for,
I'll make a motion to approve the findings resolution to make minor alter. I had said that
we
earlier.
did.
Yeah, that was
we already-
discussion.
We already did that.
Yeah.
Sorry, any more discussion on this? Hearing none, this is a resolution. We'll start with Commissioner Delight.
Aye.
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 All right.
All right, resolution passes. And then we need to schedule a public hearing for the minor alterations to County Ditch 10. And Matt, if you had.
Yep, so this is a public hearing, so that requires 3 weeks publication. So staff recommends, and what would essentially be the earliest date would be June 28th at 10:30.
All right. That'll work for board? All right, I'd look for motion to set that public hearing.
I'll make that motion, Madam Chair.
All right, motion made by Commissioner Ketchmark. Is there a second?
I'll second it.
Second by Commissioner Delyden.
And did you say at 10:30?
Yep, and we can change that. I'd just like to give you guys a recommendation, a date and a time.
Did we want to do it during the board meeting itself? Or was it going to be separate?
I'm okay either way.
Yeah, either way.
Well, I'd rather say let's do it like at 10
Or do 9:30.
or 9:30.
Okay.
Right?
Madam Chair, I think the question would be, how fast does the highway department want to act?
With all the rain, we'll probably wait a little while.
So you're fine about it?
Yeah. It's probably more like fall for us. We're fine waiting.
All right.
Madam Chair, clarity, so are we thinking doing the county board at 9:30, or are we thinking doing it at 10:30 on June 20th?
It's either way for me.
We can do 9:30. It shouldn't take very long.
I'll make motion to do it change it to 9:30.
All right.
I'll second.
Set at 9:30. Actually,
I'll change the
you'll
motion
change
to
the
that
motion
time.
to Ketchmark. And you accept
That's fine.
that. All right. Any more discussion? Hearing none. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All right. That meeting is scheduled. Then we have a resolution of acceptance and execution of the joint powers agreement between Wright County and the state of Minnesota for the treatment of non-native flag mites. Yes. Matt?
How do you pronounce that, Madam?
Phragmites?
Phragmites.
Phragmites, Phragmites, that's right. That's right, there is ides, yep.
So yeah, and I provided a little bit of background. We did not receive the MDA grant this year like we had used last year, but this joint powers agreement the state would provide us funding to do treatment and to pay for staff time, but also hire outside contractors to complete some work for problem areas. Phragmites likes the wet soil, so sometimes it's hard to get equipment out there to do treatments. So use specialized equipment in that case.
Madam Chair,
Commissioner
got a
Wetter?
question. Is there a lot present in Wright County?
We have 91 sites, so we do feel like we're on that border where we could still we're shooting for eradication. Julian Bonin and I with the state of Minnesota. That's the goal. We've done a lot of background and traveling to locate these sites, and now it's just following up with treatments. So it is quite a bit of sites. Some of them are very small sites, maybe 5 by 5, and then there's some other significant sites like in Delano that will take a lot more effort. So.
Madam Chair, I'll make a motion to approve the
you.
resolution of acceptance and the execution of the joint powers agreement between Wright County and the state of Minnesota.
Motion made by
second it.
Commissioner Vetch, seconded by Commissioner Delyden. Any more discussion? Hearing none, we'll also go with a roll call vote on this. Commissioner Vetch?
Aye.
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 Aye. All right, resolution passes. Thank you.
Thanks.
All right. We've got about 1 minute before our public hearing. Maybe we could,
I'm gonna grab a soda.
okay. We'll use up this 1 minute, I guess, with him gone.
Oh, Madam Chair, so you could probably get the preparations of opening up the public hearing in the background.
All right. It is 9:30. We are going to open up our public hearing for the purpose of an emergency interim zoning ordinance proposed for mining and extraction. And Attorney Kreiser, did you have any opening comments or?
Madam Chair, members of the board, this item is before you upon your request from a couple weeks ago. Staff has published the notice of intent in this matter in the legal newspaper, provided 10 days notice as required under law. The matter now goes up for a public hearing, ma'am, as to whether or not the board would like to institute an emergency moratorium pursuant to Minnesota Statute 394.34 for mining and extraction uses as codified underneath our ordinance, section 155.100.
All right.
Madam Chair, prior to opening up the public hearing, should we give them a little background to the public, anybody that was not pertinent to the information from our last meeting? A lot of this was brought up due to multiple townships looking at enacting possible stricter ordinances that they're of the county. There was also discussion on the length of time that has been since the ordinance has been reviewed. I think it was 1979 was the last,
78, I
or
believe.
78. So the language in the ordinance is quite old. So there was also demand for it to be looked at and updated to be more in line with that of peer counties. So that's where we are here today, based on those discussions and looking to get public comment on that, on this subject.
All right. Yeah, thank you, Commissioner Vetch. And we have received a number of written comments from people, so those are all part of the public record. Is there anyone from the public that would like to speak on this proposed interim moratorium?
I'm prepared to speak, Madam Chair.
All right.
Good morning. My name is Kevin Tierney, and I live along County Road 113, near a parcel of property on Highway 25, where MBE proposes, a gravel mine operation. I'm not an expert, and I'm here speaking, on behalf of a number of citizens in my area, in Buffalo Township and in Silver Creek Township. We're not here, to talk about the MBE application, but we've been impacted by the application. And as a result, we've had to go learn about these zoning laws and ordinances to become familiar with them and figure out, how this process works. And so, this MBE application provides some sort of context for why I'm here. And there's been other applications that have, been put forward recently that have affected other people in other parts of the county. We've gone to our township board. When I say we, I'm talking about the people in Buffalo Township. And we've brought this up with our township, and they agree with us. And they've, enacted a moratorium, and I'm sure you've heard about it.
We have it.
We're not experts in this, and we know that you're familiar with a lot of this. And we respect that, and we appreciate the opportunity, to kind of voice our opinion here today. Some of the inadequacies that we've identified, include, the fact that the present ordinance really doesn't comport with the long-term, county land use plan adopted in 2007. And that's because, the ordinance was, adopted itself in 1979. That's 43 years ago. To put this in context, the site that MBE proposes to mine gravel is designated as agricultural with, a gravel mining as a conditional use, while the long-term plan, has it as commercial. there needs to be, some sort of attention to this. We need to go back and review some of these ordinances to see, where they fit in relation to the long-term plan. There's no provision in the present zoning ordinance for interim use permits or limited temporary permits, only a conditional use permit, that runs with the land. We know that Rockford Township, has their own ordinance that, provides for IUPs or temporary permits. One reason for a moratorium would be to study what other counties have adopted and to see if interim permits help provide and regulate for the highest and best use of the land. There's little provided, in our ordinance for the enforcement operation, for the enforcement of operation conditions. Perhaps this is a reflection of what things were like in 1979, but much is known now about the hazards of silica dust, noise pollution, and other environmental hazards that were probably not known or really discussed much in 1979. There ought to be a stronger mechanism built in to our zoning ordinance to enforce operating conditions without having to resort to costly litigation or criminal charges. The ordinance should have an enforcement action built into it. The other thing that we've looked at is, reclamation. We understand that the county now provides for a bond, to cover some of the costs of reclamation. Is it really adequate? How many gravel mines are actually operating in Wright County? If they're not operating, when does reclamation commence? If reclamation is not commenced, is there a mechanism built into the ordinance to ensure that it begins? What about the mining operations not covered before the county, started with the reclamation bond? It's hard to get answers to these questions, and it seems like what has to happen is there's a lawsuit, and that's not what, that's not how this should work. There should be some sort of internal mechanism built into these ordinances to provide for this. And we're asking you, to just put the brakes on things and study what some of the surrounding counties have done. We're a third-tier county, and we're not the only third-tier county. What has Sherburne County done? Anoka, Washington County, Dakota, Scott, Carver. These counties have all gone through this same process. They've been developed. They're probably further ahead on some of these issues than we are. Let's put the brakes on and see what they did. Let's look at their ordinances and to see how they've handled this. 43 years ago, I just got this off the 1980 census. St. Michael had a population of 1,519 people. Monticello was at 2,830 people, and Buffalo, the county seat, was at 4,560. A lot has changed. There's more people residing in our county, obviously. We live close together in cities, but we also reside in the county, and we live on lakes. And this was predicted. It's in the long-term plan, okay? But, why do we still have zoning, that allows for a conditional use permit of, a gravel mine operation, that conflicts with the long-term plan? Again, to put this in context, there are 515 single-family residences within a 1-mile radius of the MBE gravel mine, or the proposed MBE gravel mine operation. That's 515 homes that are impacted. Yet, the zoning designation would allow for a potential gravel mine. Your predecessors, have all had to deal with the changing demographics, of our county. You deal with this constantly. It was predicted, that our old courthouse would be outgrown. the administrative buildings would be outgrown. The old courthouse was remodeled several times. The jail was condemned. It was added on, then it was moved. The law enforcement center was built in 2008. And here we are today in 2022 in a brand new, magnificent building. This is an amazing step into the future. But yet we're still using ordinances that haven't been looked at in 43 years. It's time to kind of step into the future with respect to how we live in our county. It's not just the buildings we operate out of. Please, let's have a moratorium. Let's study this. Let's move together and meet some of these challenges. Thank you for scheduling this meeting and listening to us.
Thank you, Mr. Tierney. Would anyone else from the public like to speak? Would anyone else from the public like to speak? Okay.
Hi.
Good morning.
Good morning. My name is Callie Cruz, and I live with my 5 daughters. These are our 2 youngest. The other 3 are at school with my husband in the Eagle Ridge neighborhood, not far from here at all. We moved here to Wright County 3 years ago from St. Paul. Like many people in the Twin Cities, we wanted to relocate to an area with more green space, an acreage lot for our family, and all of the amenities that Wright County has to offer. And when we looked at a few different communities, we settled on this area. And I'm here today to voice my strong support for the interim zoning ordinance, the moratorium on mining. We are very concerned about this in our community. And our children, our 3 older children, pass, I think, 3 gravel mines on their school bus ride to school. And we would just like to see this this looked at more closely, so this doesn't have to be such a grassroots mom of 5 kids and neighbor fight. Every time something like this comes up, it's been new to us, and we're surprised. And we think that this area will continue to be a huge draw for people who want to leave the cities and kind of move to this just outer tier area. But I know families like ours who, go to school here and go to church here and go to grocery stores here and live here and, pay taxes on our property here. We don't want to live next to a gravel pit. And we hope that you will support this moratorium so that this can be looked at more closely for our kids and for all of the families who have made this area their home and continue to make this beautiful area their home. So that's all. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Ms. Cruz. Is there anyone else from the public that would like to speak? Is there anyone else from the public that would like to speak? Yes, sir.
Thank you, Commissioners. My name is Steve Garvin, and I have property on 50th Street. I rise in support of what Mr. Tierney has talked about, along with Ms. Cruz. The ordinance is totally inadequate, this 1979 ordinance, in today's day and age. And just one significant glitch that I've read in the current, there's a current EAW that you guys have on your website for a different location than the MBE, but it talks about, on page 20, it talks about air quality, and they make reference to the dust being annoying and possibly cause allergic reactions. That's from their current EAW. The 2017 Minnesota Department of Health and OSHA both have classified respiratory crystalline silica dust as carcinogenic, silicosis, lung cancer, COPD, and kidney disease. Now, I would just implore you to think of those when you look at the setbacks in the current ordinance of 30 feet from a residential house, and 500 feet for any processing, which could be asphalt or concrete crushing, which I think is part of the proposals you're looking at. And all I would say is that these current ordinance does not take into effect the health hazards that this process is now found to establish, along with what Mr. Tierney has said. We have 515 homes with families and children that is not addressed in the OSHA requirement. The OSHA takes care of the workers on site, but it doesn't, and for their 8-10-hour shifts, but it doesn't take care of the 24/7, 365 that the people who live in the area are subject to some of these hazards. So I would just encourage you to please vote for the moratorium, and let's study this issue. Let's figure out how it works and if it can work in our modern move in Wright County. So we appreciate your time, and thank you very much.
Mr. Garvin. Is there anyone else from the public that would like to speak? Is there anyone else from the public that would like to speak? Yes, please come up.
Hi, my name is Lori Cassidy, and I live on 50th Street. I'm very close to the proposed site for MBA and their proposed gravel mining operation. My husband and I bought property there 32 years ago. It was the first piece sold of a farming family that owned a lot of property in that area. And we bought it because it was a beautiful place to live, and we too wanted a little bit of space and wanted to be able to raise our family there. So going forward now, we have 5 children and 2 grandchildren, and we continue to really enjoy that place. Across the street, we have a beautiful apple orchard. Down the road, there's another one. It's just a very nice place to be. So I have a couple of different thoughts going through my mind. One is because we've been there so many years, we have seen the increase in the traffic on County Road 113. And we live kind of at the top of a hill, so to speak, and it gets to be very dangerous on there. We used to walk the road, and we now get in our car and go somewhere else to walk. You just can't. It's not real safe to do that. The corner of 25 and 113 is virtually, you just have to put 10 minutes in to your time slot if you're going to try to get out onto that road. And this site is beautiful. However, at 7:45, trying to get onto that road and to maneuver on 25 is crazy. I know that there are proposed improvements, and that's great. But we also have been through this once before a few years ago on a piece of property that's not that exact same spot. And a lot of the same conversations came up at that time. And one of the things is that the health of so many residents right in the very vicinity of this seems to make some sense. I hate to say we were there first type of thing, but the businesses there, the people chose to live there because it was agricultural residential, not even guessing that this was an option. And so as you think about it, I described it in one of our meetings as like splatter paint. Our gravel pits have kind of become just, it'll go here, it'll go here, it'll go here. And I love living in this area, and I would love to see us come up with a better plan of where those gravel pits need to be, how we're going to develop like the entrances into Buffalo and those types of things. The corridor between Monticello and Buffalo on 25, it is there. It's already happening. How are we going to develop that space? So I know you live in these areas too, and you chose Wright County for some purpose or reason also. So I very much appreciate you taking this time, listening, and would love to be a part of helping, put a plan together, because sometimes things can get out of hand and then we can't play catch up fast enough. So thank you.
Ms. Cassidy. Is there anyone else from the public that would like to speak? Yes.
Hi, I'm Colleen Ernesty with Buffalo Township, and I applaud you for this, considering this moratorium. I think from our township aspect, we as a group would like to see in the moratorium, and when you're thinking about this, the number of gravel pits that one can have in a township. And I am concerned about the reclamation of these. We have several. We have 4, and they move over to a different spot, but they never reclaim. They're always open. And one of them is you go up County Road 25, and behind and on the right side is a gravel pit that's not. They're still digging in it, but it still has mounds in there, and kids are riding their 4-wheelers throughout that piece. And those are some things that I would like you guys to think about. When you're doing this moratorium, if you do it, those are important to us. So, and I also want to thank our township people. We have an awesome group. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Ernesty. Is there anyone else from the public that would like to speak? Is there anyone else from the public that would like to speak? Yes, please come up.
Hi, I'm Kate Dietel from Silver Creek Township. I'm here also to speak in support of doing the emergency moratorium and echo what the others said. Our ordinance is outdated. It needs to be revised to consider the new demographics of our county and to comply with our land use plan. One of the things to be considered would be using IUPs versus CUPs. That will give the county a little more flexibility. The CUPs will stay with the land and they're there forever, where an IUP, there's a little more flexibility and allow you to terminate that when certain conditions are met. Also, I think I'm representing our citizens of Silver Creek Township. We've already enacted a moratorium in our township, I'm sure you're aware, and have spent the past year studying this. We want to make it clear we're not opposed to gravel mining. We understand that there's a need for gravel. A lot of us have gravel driveways. We drive on gravel roads. We just want consideration on where these mines are placed. Like the others have said, it doesn't make sense to put them next to these residences, and a 30-foot, setback for processing materials when my kids are playing, 30 feet away. I've got 4 young children. That doesn't make sense. It needs to be updated. That was probably sufficient in 1978, but it's not anymore. So thank you for your time.
Thank you. Is there anyone else from the public that would like to speak? Is there anyone else from the public that would like to speak? All right, yes, sir.
Good morning, Chair, members of the board. My name is Barry Heikkinen, and I'm here as a member of Silver Creek Township. I just wanted to echo a few things, and I'll try to be brief here. What we have heard in the past is we have a shortage of ag resources, and I just don't find that to be the case. And I think that this moratorium would allow us to do complete a study on the effects of our health and the environment as well. With other counties around us, as has been mentioned earlier, enacting stricter ordinances, I'm afraid Wright County may become the place people go to since our ordinance is antiquated. Economic impact, I'd like to address that for a minute. A mine is a conditioned use in an ag resource area. However, in the land use plan, these areas may be in the land use plan as a planned use, or excuse me, as a let me check my notes here. I'm a little nervous. Sorry about that. It may be in the land use plan as ag res. In an ag res area, you could have 1 houses per 10 acres, or even a planned use development where this mine might be there for 40 to 50 years. You're taking all of those taxes that would be paid on a planned use development on those individual homes out of the taxpayer rolls. And I just wanted to briefly touch on this. Some of you may remember, we used to have landline phones 43 years ago. I remember that. I don't know, Derek, you might be a little young for that, but we even had a party line. So 43 years, a lot of things have changed over that time period. Thank you very much. Appreciate it.
Thank you, sir. Is there anyone else from the public that would like to speak? Is there anyone else from the public that would like to speak? Is there anyone else from the public that would like to speak? Hearing none, I'll close the public comments and bring it up to the board.
Madam Chair,
Commissioner Vetch.
prior to the meeting start today, I distributed out an interim ordinance that I worked with staff that outlined kind of some of the discussion from our previous meeting, as well as accommodated some possible concerns that may have come up in this meeting. So the interim ordinance that you look at there, 22-1, prohibits new and pending mining extraction conditional use permits for the period of 1 year. Under Section 2, though, it does make an exemption for sorry, I'm gonna read it out here for permits that are current ones that are already operating, that are in good standing, can continue. So there's an exemption there for those that if their review comes up for within this period of time, they will be able to continue under that. So, but largely stops any new ones or pending ones that are looking to move forward at this time, for giving us 1 year period of time to research and review.
Madam Chair?
Commissioner Delighten?
So we have one in the planning and zoning right now that we have a site visit next week.
That would be.
Not one out.
It is not currently operating, it would be a pending one, therefore it would be stopped. This 22-1 would only allow ones that have already had a previous conditional use permit to continue.
Okay. So then that meeting can get canceled then?
Madam Chair, Commissioner Dahl-Leiden, it's a good question, what the board wants to do here. Sometimes we go forward with it in the assumption that maybe something will come up in the future, so then you're prepared because you've done the site inspection. I don't know, Barry can maybe talk with the Planning Commission Chair if this resolution or amendment ordinance is approved as to how to proceed with that site inspection.
Because I know the one that is being looked at through the Planning Commission, there weren't any homes anywhere near that, if I remember correctly. It was way out in the country. So it's probably not quite as much of an issue on that one, but.
Madam Chair, maybe Barry could come up. That the pit they're doing the site inspection on, is it a brand new pit, Barry?
Yeah, it's a brand new pit from a standpoint of a conditional use permit. There have been illegal operations out of it on and off for 20 years. But this is the first attempt of a property owner or an applicant to actually make it legal.
Madam Chair,
Commissioner Wetter?
what township is this located in?
Cokato Township.
Oh, Cokato. So it wouldn't be covered by Clearwater's or Buffalo Township's moratoriums, is what I'm saying. So, since it's in Cokato.
Yeah, and actually the Buffalo's moratorium, the way I read it, actually exempts out any application that was accepted and is pending by the county, even for new.
Okay.
Madam Chair.
Commissioner Ketchmark?
Well, thanks for coming in, Barry, and all the citizens and the comments that I read. And as one speaker said, we're not here to talk about the MBE pit, but
yes,
including he mentioned MBE's pit in this location over and over. And then we had Silver Creek. We have a couple representatives from there. We have, in the letters, I think there was about 10 letters that Barry forwarded to us. Six. And then there was a couple from, I think, Monticello Township, which were somewhat close to that pit that we reviewed last year. So it seems like it's a concentrated area. I'm not getting any feedback from my district or advocating for the moratorium. I think that there's room to tweak the ordinance, and somebody mentioned reclamation, which I think we could tweak. But I think if we're going to do a moratorium, if there's representation from the board, it'd be best coming from the areas of where all this activity is centered around. And there is a concentrated area, more so than other parts of the county.
Madam Chair,
Mr.
to
Vetch.
Commissioner Catchmark's point, the majority of the resources are in the northern part of the county along the Mississippi River. So hence there tends to not be as much of, I guess, contention in your district for this matter, just because there's not. And then it's far less densely populated in that district as well. So you don't have to finesse the resource demand versus the urban development. So I don't know that you would even want to even consider doing a partial moratorium, because anything that comes out of it is going to be applied unilaterally across the county if there is any modifications to it. So you'd hate to carve off and say you were only going to put a moratorium for the northern part of the county or districts 2 and 3, or if you did that, you run into the issue is people that are putting applications, you make it a flood of applicants on the southern part of the county, just in lieu of the fact that there may be changes or may not be, but and you don't know what that'll be, because you might get a bunch of, I guess, non-compliant pits going forward if there was ordinance changes, so.
Madam Chair.
Commissioner Wetter?
Getting back to Rockford Township having an IUP, what did they do? Because they've got some pits that are beautifully reclaimed. And I know of one that was right next to a development, and it's, you would never guess that it had been a pit at one time. I know that for maybe a year it was dusty, but they, controlled it the best they could. But I guess what's the difference between the IUP and the CUP?
Madam Chair?
There's a time limit.
So the difference
ahead.
with an IUP versus a CUP is largely comes down to the burden of what you have to prove when the permit ends. So for a conditional use permit, you have, when it comes up for renewal, you're actually on the steeper end from a board side of, you have to say what conditions in the county has changed to not allow it to move forward, continuing operating, i.e. as a gravel pit or whatever it may be. Now, if it's an IUP, you no longer have that burden to, because it was interim, it was intended to have a sunset and end to it. So therefore, you no longer have that burden to have to argue that the conditions changed. You can just say, you know what, nope, we didn't want it anymore because this is when we told you it was done. It's done. So that's the difference. In interim use, you don't have that burden of having to articulate what conditions in the county have changed that you no longer want this conditional use permit granted.
So is that still handled through planning and zoning, or is it a different process?
Madam Chair, Commissioner Wetter, that would be handled through planning and zoning.
It would be, okay.
Madam Chair, the biggest thing with the IUPs versus CUPs is you're removing a large litigation avenue from the applicant. Under a conditional use permit and you don't grant it, they have a lot more latitude to litigate versus with an IUP, they have a much smaller window to litigate to be able to move forward if they don't get the answer they want from the Planning Commission.
Madam Chair.
Commissioner Wetter?
Well, I guess that process is actually working for Rockford Township, and I also understand that they only allow a certain number of pits to be opened, at a certain time. So I guess I'm kind of curious why some of these townships that are having these problems already, they've got their moratoriums on this already, and in the meantime, we can change the ordinance and work on that. But if they were also work on what, on what should I say, legal specifications for their townships, why can't they do that also?
Madam Chair,
Yeah, Commissioner Vetch.
So the biggest thing that the townships do not have is the resources to enforce these ordinances. Hence the reason they use the county for planning and zoning. And what we don't want to have is where we have 10 different townships having 10 different one-off modifications to the county gravel ordinance, because it makes it very challenging for us to enforce it, as well as it would be very hard for our planning and zoning to administer future applications in trying to make all those delineations. So what we're trying to do right now is we have multiple townships that are looking at making stricter modifications to the county's ordinances, and we're trying to slow that down and saying, well, let's come together here and see if we can adopt a holistic ordinance that all the townships would be able to stand behind and would feel that it would meet the needs between urban development and utilization of the resource.
And I mean, similar to when they came up with the land use plan, it was for the entire county, but they, did it holistically, and in different areas, they specify different things. So if you have an overall plan, then it's better for all of us. So you don't have, like you said, one-offs, one here, one there. So,
Madam Chair, but at the same time, what I'm seeing is the policing and the reclamation is not happening out there. So who's in charge of doing the policing? Is that planning and zoning, or would that have to go through complaints?
That's what we'd have to get in place.
Madam Chair,
Commissioner Vetch.
and I will, to that respect, our planning and zoning director has done a wonderful job in his short term in office to stem some of the past practices of enforcement and trying to get more clarity to it. And I know in a lot of discussions that I've had, his goal is to make sure that there is no longer that ambiguity as to what is reclamation and when it should happen, and to make sure that there is documentation when there is complaints, and that those documentations are brought forward when the CUPs come back up for renewal. Yes, some of that stuff fell through the cracks in the past. I do know that through conversations, and I have good belief that Mr. Reinberger will do a fantastic job on closing those gaps, but even still, he's still handcuffed on what is in the ordinance itself as to what he can do, and that's where it's important that we take the time to look through it. It is a 1970s ordinance, and a lot has changed since the 70s, so I think that it's really pertinent that we take some time to review it.
Madam Chairman, if I may, to address Commissioner Wetter's comment, it's not necessarily about strictly reclamation, because in a lot of cases, the pits are still active, and the way the conditional use permit structures works, they continue to come in for amendments and extensions, and then so our hands are really tied, and unless the planning commission, were to not issue one and then require the reclamation, we're doing the bidding of the planning commission.
Okay.
And so that's where it lies. And there again, it's always that, toss up between the benefits of having it open and finishing it out versus just getting it done and out of the way. Yes, I believe Rockford Township's ordinance does limit 3 open pits at a time. There have been a lot of borrow pits in that area where they remove and then bring back in. Road projects, those types of things have a lot of borrow that comes back into those pits. And so those get reclaimed at a different elevation than some of our long-term pits do that are 30 or 40 feet deep.
Madam Chair, who I have Barry up front, I had asked you for the ordinance, and on the bottom it says ordinance 18 -4 passed 6/19/2018. So was it looked at again in 2018, or is this an error, or what?
No, Madam Chair, Commissioner Wetter, I'm wondering if that was our general cleanup when we went through and we did about probably close to 100 to 200 different
We
minor
codified.
revisions across
We
the
codified.
board.
We codified everything.
We did the recodification before that, Commissioner Vetch, but I know we did do a general cleanup ordinance. We just had typographical errors that we changed. So there could have been one in there.
Oh, so it really was 2018 that it got looked at again, or
No,
or just-
2018 it would have been.
You're just saying
It would have been minor
typos.
typographical changes, yeah.
Okay.
Madam Chair,
That's
Mr.
why I
Batch?
was questioning everybody's saying that 1978 and my copy's saying 2018, so I'm going like, what?
and there is some, Madam Chair, we do have some really good mining operators in our county that do a fantastic job of reclaiming the pits as fast as they can and getting row crops in hauling in and putting back the topsoil as fast as they can, because it's actually to their benefit a lot of times to be able to get some sort of crops growing and actually generate some income from that property versus leaving it dormant.
Yeah.
And I think with going through this moratorium and researching it, like we did through the solar ordinance, there was a great education that came out of it. And I strongly encourage my fellow board members to adopt the interim ordinance 22-1 to take the time and do our due diligence to come forward with a ordinance that we can stand behind across all townships.
Madam Chair,
Commissioner Ketchmark?
just a reference to process with this 25 and 113, Attorney Kreiser, can you give an update on the EAW that has been mentioned here today? Has one been applied for? Is there one in the works, or has that not happened?
Madam Chair, Commissioner Ketchmark, there is an EAW pending right now for the MBE pit in Buffalo Township north of here on Highway 25. That is currently underneath, the second submission has been submitted by the applicant, and staff is going to be giving its response to that later this week as far as completeness.
Okay.
So,
And
I believe
that's-
this has not been determined at this point in time, but we'll make that determination at a staff level here soon.
And that's a specific item to a specific pit that we've heard about today, along with reclamation, which there is already something in the works with county staff that's looking into the reclamation process further also. So my point, and Commissioner Vetch agreed, that I got a less of an amount because of where the resources are in Wright County, and I can't help that. But I'm willing to look at when that commission brings things forward to the board to decide. It just seems like that if there's representation from the board, that it should come from the folks that are more in contact with all these from past years, and the citizens and the townships. And we've got it narrowed down to what we've heard from is Buffalo Township, Silver Creek, and Monticello. And that's my point. I'm not against the moratorium per se, but just how the representation is made up. And then the recommendations will be brought to the full board for us to decide, I would assume.
Madam Chair?
Yeah, Commissioner Delyden.
You know, that is one of my questions on who we want to have on this board, but I would think we'd want to have township supervisors that are from different parts of the county, because this is going to affect everybody. And I don't know if we want to address who we intend on having on this review of the ordinance and the amount of people.
Madam Chair, and
Commissioner Vetch?
Commissioner Ketchmark will relate to this with going through the solar side of it. I do know that with trying to be as inclusive as we possibly could on this solar ordinance review, I think the group got a little bit too large and got very difficult to manage. I guess I would almost want to say to give us an opportunity to work with staff to come back with a proposal to the board to react to from a work group at the following week at the board meeting, just because I don't want a knee-jerk reaction and throw a bunch of people at it and it not being very productive. I think because we had so many people on our solar work group, it ended up dragging out a much longer moratorium that maybe if it was a smaller group, I don't necessarily know that it would have had to go that long. I don't know your thoughts on that, Commissioner Ketchmark.
Yeah, Madam Chair, and I should be clear, I'm talking about the board representation should come from where the majority of these pits and locations and moratoriums are coming from. Not I agree, the rest of the county should be represented as a whole, but I'm talking about the chair and co-chair from the board, I think should come from those mostly affected areas that we keep hearing over and over. But yes, Commissioner Vetch, and I mentioned it before, when you have members from 3 different companies of an industry that you're potentially going to regulate on a board, it kind of tips the hand, I think, too far to the other side. They can't say that they weren't well represented, but I think it was too much.
Yes.
and yeah, I agree, keeping it manageable so it doesn't drag out, so we don't have to drag this out. We can get this, written and, do the research and come up with a good recommendation.
Because Madam Chair, I mean, I'm kind of looking at it as a variety of different ways as we want to discuss in the ordinance. We want to look at, obviously, the ordinance of that of our peer counties. I want to go through the reclamation and how that pertains to the ordinance itself. I want to do a discussion about IUPs versus CUPs. I also want to talk about enforcement and kind of getting an education on what the enforcement options are within the current ordinance, and if there is things that can be done or need to be done or should be done within the ordinance to address that as well. Then we also can talk about setbacks and notification pieces as well. But Madam Chair, if I guess I would probably recommend it if I could bring back something for the board to react to next week in terms of placements to this group, not actual individuals, but entities that could put placements on, representatives.
Madam Chair, I'll make a motion for the interim ordinance number 22-1. Okay.
All right.
I'll second that.
Motion made to adopt interim ordinance number 22-1. Commissioner Delyden, seconded by Commissioner Vetch.
Madam Chair?
Yes.
I would recommend planning and zoning continue with their site inspection next week, just to make things continue to be able to move along a little bit easier in the future.
All right. All right. Is there any more discussion on the motion? Hearing none. All in favor?
Aye.
Resolution?
I don't have, is it a resolution?
Madam Chair, it's an ordinance. You can take a poll if you want.
Okay.
We voted there, I think. I'm a little
It's
bit.
up to you. Madam Chair, it's really up to you how you want to proceed.
Yeah.
We voted on it.
Yeah, we voted, so. any
Opposed, right?
All right.
Madam Chair, a question, if what Commissioner Vetch handed out, is this, because I didn't have a chance to read it all, are we
Yes.
voting that all these sections and topics are part of this moratorium, or are we leaving it more vague until?
Madam Chair, to answer his questions, this is largely a boilerplate ordinance piece, other than Section 2, which is the kind of more modified piece that addresses the existing CUPs that are in good standing to be able to continue if they come up for renewal during this moratorium period. Otherwise, the rest of it is pretty much boilerplate, just other than at the very first, the number 1 there, that kind of is the actual language that enacts the actual moratorium. The rest of it is the legal stuff, if there's any type of legal challenge to the actual moratorium itself, or if there's any ambiguity that needs clarity, that's the kind of largely legal boilerplate.
And then we'll have further discussions regarding who'll be on the committee.
I plan to bring back a recommendation of kind of what the makeup of the group should be, and then with that, we should be able to find individuals to fill the slots.
Okay.
Madam
All
Chair,
right. Commissioner
just a
Ketchmark?
question for Attorney Kreiser. Do we, this, like a draft ordinance, does that have to be released to the public ahead of time at all?
Madam Chair, Commissioner Ketchmark, after the group studies it, we'll have a public hearing and a draft will be published and noticed
Okay,
at that time.
all right. Just a question on process, because you know how I like getting things at 9:01.
And Madam Chair, and to Commissioner Ketchmark's point, we would like to have had this out a little bit sooner, but we were trying to mitigate just issues with existing operators and trying to get language that would be able to allow that to not be impacted. So with that, it took a little bit longer and ended up making it past the deadline there for our packets to get out for agendas. So.
Yeah, Madam Chair,
I
Commissioner.
apologize.
Madam Chair, Commissioner Vetch and Commissioner Ketchmark, yeah, staff was working hard here, and it never helps when we have a holiday in there too. It does creep up on you.
All right, thank you.
All right. So we voted. There was no opposed.
Aye. I'm sorry, I'm opposed.
Oh.
For the simple
Oh, I'm sorry.
purpose, for the simple purpose, you never asked for it.
I did
Yeah.
oppose, but then Catchmark had a question, sorry.
I'm opposed to it because I think the areas that are already have moratoriums on them, and I'm not against looking over the ordinance and redoing it in the meantime, but I don't see that we should be stopping other ones that go through the process, and I believe in property rights, as I think a lot of people do, and I think that as long as, Rockford Township has their deal already with the 3 allowed, these other townships have their own moratoriums, and that's the areas we're concerned about right now. So I don't see why we should be stopping anybody else from going through the process of having a pit opening.
All right. Thank you. Thank you, Commissioner Wetter. All right. We're all clear otherwise? All right. Sorry about that. When I called for
I'm sorry.
when I called
Maybe
for
I
oppose, and I
should have woke
Commissioner.
up sooner too.
So, Madam Chair, just for the record, reflects
Yes.
it was ordinance dash 22 dash or interim ordinance 22-1 was passed on a 4-1 vote.
Yes, thank you. All right. All right. Moving right along. So we have our items for consideration. There is a few items here. Discussion regarding the Government Center open house and.
Madam Chair, I know
Yeah.
our representative from BKV is on a tight time schedule today, so could we
Yes.
move on to number 2 first?
Thank you. Yep, thank you. All right, Mr. Schwartzman, welcome.
Madam Chair, Commissioners, good to see you all.
Good to see you.
Thank you very much for the time. I appreciate that. I'd be more than welcome to hear about the open house as well, because I'd love to be there for this. So, as you all know, there's been a lot of discussion on the firing range, the indoor range at the Tactical Training Center. When we designed it, it complies with what's considered an ASHRAE standard for the amount of air movement that goes through the range. The issue was the angle of the diffuser at the back of the range was creating turbulence. And while I think it was last spring, we came out and we worked with a variety of the contractor and a testing company to try to get the flow properly. Even though we could get it at some lanes, we couldn't get it at all of them. We came back, looked at some options. At that time, we suggested, this was summer of last year, we suggested 2 options. One was to reconstruct the entire back wall, because what's required for a firing range is that you have what's considered a laminar flow. So it's a continual kind of constant airflow from behind the shooter to the targets in the front to make sure there's no lead contaminants at the shooting line. So we suggested either reconstruct it or go with a spiral diffuser. That was last year. The numbers at that point in time were roughly, I think it was 9,500 or so for about 9,500 for the wall reconstruction, and about 1,700 or 17,000, excuse me, for the spiral diffuser. I think it was right around January or so this year that we found out that there was still some concern about how things were proceeding and whether or not that was going to really cover what needed to be covered. And so in meeting with a number of folks from the county, we decided let's go out and tour some newly completed facilities around the state, new firing range, indoor firing ranges, see how they've done it to make sure whatever way Wright County went would be something that would accomplish what you're trying to achieve and make sure there's no issues with whatever retrofit was done. We toured the Hero Center in Cottage Grove, which is a new training facility that the state helped to support for a regional training facility. It has multiple indoor ranges. We toured the Minneapolis Precinct 4, which recently had their range redone. We found that both of those facilities, they used the spiral duct that we were recommending. And we found that they did one other thing too that we thought was a good advantage to add to your potential range. On the way the range currently works, if if they were going to use the range on a Monday or Tuesday or whatever, the automated building system could be programmed to come on, so that the airflow comes on at a certain time, shuts off at a certain time. Or they'd have to utilize a computer to access the automated system to turn it on when they wanted to. What we found at these two other facilities is that there was a device in the room that when the air velocity got to the proper flow, a green indicator light would come on and letting you know that it's safe to use the range. It also had a warning signal that indicated if there was a problem with the airflow, letting you know the range should be shut down, shooting should stop, and make sure the range is operating properly. We then went ahead and suggested that that be added to your range. So the price went up over the year in waiting. The price went from the $17,500 roughly to about $27,000 to make these modifications to range. I initially made an offer to the county. We have some capability in it. It was part of our design, and we want to make sure it functions well. The added feature of the additional control in the room is an added value, what we consider added value. Anyway, we've enjoyed working with the county. We've really been fortunate in the opportunity we've had to work with you, and initially I offered $14,000 to help mitigate some of the cost. Then in talking to Mr. Kelly, I came back and said, you know what, even though it was $17,533, I think, last year to do the spiral duct, and it's more now, we said, okay, we're going to put $19,000 in towards that $27,000 change to just help this get done so that the range could start being used again. So my offer today to the county is BKV will support the change by paying $19,000 of it.
All right. Board.
Madam
So,
Chair.
Commissioner
Hello.
Ketchmark
Good
and
morning,
Commissioner
Bruce.
Rich.
Morning, Commissioner.
Thanks for coming in. Good to talk to you in person. We had some good conversations over the phone, and I really appreciated that and wanted you to have, as the other board members, to have a chance to come and talk to all of us. This is one of these things that I kind of inherited when I came on. It was already well underway, but still we're faced with deciding things, whether we were here for the beginning or not. So part of the process that I'm wondering about is, and you told me on the phone that this technology was available when you folks were engineering and designing our range, is that right?
Correct.
Okay, and do you have any correspondence that you shared with county staff where you offered this system and another system and our county staff checked a box and picked the one that's there now?
No, in the thousands of decisions that are made in designing a building, we try to document as many as possible, but when you're talking about the issue, I don't think you're talking about the spiral duct. I think you're talking about the control inside the range.
Well,
Correct,
both
Commissioner?
actually. Do you remember having a verbal conversation or any other correspondence about that? Either one.
We went through a number of features. I don't want to say specifically one or not with any of these features. Again, we went through lots of decisions, lots of discussions.
But then there was one test that happened, and you said that was satisfactory for your company. And then after the first one, right?
It complies with ASHRAE air movement standards. It did not. We could not balance the range to prevent any potential contaminants, any particulates in coming back in the face of the shooter. When we rebalanced the system, out of the 5 lanes, we were able to get 3 center ones, but the 2 end ones were still spiral. So to handle that, we were suggesting to go into a spiral duct.
Okay.
And to accommodate that spiral duct, we were offering to pay for the spiral duct. So we were offering to make the change that mitigated that contaminant issue.
Did you have any deadlines that you relayed to the county when you made your first offer that said, we're offering this, you have 30 days to respond, if
No.
not?
No, Commissioner.
Okay. And I'm just wondering, because as we all know, the prices change over time. And if there is something like that, that's more toward our county staff sitting on it and not acting also. But if you didn't give any deadlines to say, that's just part of my decision-making process here today.
Commissioner, I think there were a lot of people trying to make sure the right things were done. And there was additional research that was done to look at the range and different options. So I think everybody was taking the time to make sure whatever was done, the amount of money, whatever is spent, was going to result in something that was positive for the county and the users of that facility.
And in the end, you agreed that the control panel would be a good addition as well as the spiral duct.
Spiral
inflow
duct,
system.
duct, in my opinion, is a necessity to make sure all lanes can be used. The additional control system in the range allows it to be much more user-friendly when using the range.
Okay. I appreciate your honesty and what you can remember, because I'm sure you've had a lot of projects and everything since then on different locations. And my position, a little different for a couple reasons, but also this is in my district and I get a lot of questions from the public. And they ask, why is it closed? Why can't the public use it? Why aren't other agencies using it to offset costs? Those kinds of things. Plus the noise at night, which they will relate, whether it's right or not, to them not being able to shoot inside and shut the lights off at night. And then who should be paying this, knowing that already $8 to $9 million has been paid? Just the whole totality of the circumstance won't allow me to tell my constituents that we're going to pay anything of these resolutions, I'll say. The extra shipping, I don't think that's necessary for one thing, because it's nice out. People can shoot outside now. And there were some figures thrown around about extra shipping. And my understanding is these parts haven't been ordered or received yet for either resolution.
No, the contractors are waiting for the county board's approval to proceed.
Right. So my thought for the board is that we not pay anything extra and for either modification, and the shipping could just be regular shipping, which would have been originally if this would have been offered to the county where we could have made the choice. If there was a choice where we declined it and said, no, we want the lesser money, we want this option, and Bruce said, I recommended this, but they didn't go with it, then it's a different conversation. But that's my thought here today. And again, I thank you for coming in so we can all talk together here.
Madam Chair.
Commissioner Vetch?
Bruce,
Commissioner, good to see
I
you.
tell you, I really wish we could walk out of this room and be friends, because I find it really ironic how at the very next item on the agenda, it's we're talking about this, and now you're slamming me with a bill for I'm almost going to call it a war profiteering because of delayed schedules because of COVID. And it loosely articulates, and I use the word loosely articulates the words for the delays in the work. I don't really know that I'm trying to delineate what is additional work versus work that would have been done, but it was just done on a longer time schedule.
Madam
which
Chair,
were largely outside
can
of
we
our
stick
scope.
to the
Yeah.
But this is,
first, please?
but they are tied together, and I'm getting to
Well,
it.
yes and no.
Because this overall comes to the integrity of the company. We hired you to build a facility that would accomplish the ability to shoot within it. It was not able to do that. Now, that would be the same as if your company, if I couldn't flush the toilets in here, and I'm going to have to pay a part of the cost because it wasn't designed correctly. I mean,
Commissioner,
that's what you were paid to do.
For the firing range, what's only needed is the spiral duct. The additional controls allows for a more user-friendly application. That's if this building was built and you said, you know what, I want 2 more windows here. That would be an addition to the value. Adding that control is a betterment to the facility. The amount that I'm offering to pay, the $19,000, when we sent a recommendation letter last June, the value was $17,500. Our recommendation last June was go ahead with that spiral duct. It didn't happen. So all I'm trying to do is help mitigate the cost for that spiral duct. The other portion is added value.
I agree with that.
And Commissioner, I will be glad to talk to you or show you my contract. We've tried very hard to be good representatives and good stewards with the county. The issue that I'd like to have, and it was suggested by Mr. Kelly to have a meeting, a committee of the whole meeting, which I'd be glad to share our documentation. All I'm doing is relating my contract. COVID and all this other stuff delayed it. Your construction manager received additional funds for additional time spent on site. We have the same scenario. So again, I will be glad to address either issue. I'm very confident and very firm and feel very confident and firm in my commitment on both of these issues.
And those items we'll discuss at a committee of the whole. But
All right. Madam Chair,
Commissioner Delighten.
I will move forward that BKV, we will take them up on their offer that they will pay $19,000 of the $25,000, which is covering the cost of the piece of equipment that is necessary in order to keep the flow properly going. And the additional amount is for the benefit of our deputies and FBI if they're using it, and to make the firing range much more user-friendly and safer.
All right, motion made by Commissioner Delighten. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Second by Commissioner Wetter. Any more discussion?
Madam Chair, just a matter of the shipping, if this passes, are we, because they haven't been ordered or delivered yet, so is there an interest, or does the motion say that you would also want to order this at fastest shipping available, which was an extra $1,400 or so? Or how will that get addressed?
I'm going to leave that up to purchasing.
All right.
Madam Chair,
I'll agree with that.
I mean, I'm going along with getting that fixed because it needs to get fixed, but I'm just more, the next item on the agenda and the how far this got dogged out, it just still leaves me with a very poor taste when we I guess I thought we were choosing the right architect to go through the job, and now in the back end over small things, we're having to get really dirty, and this is not pretty.
Well, Commissioner, I would appreciate the opportunity for us to sit down and review it. Because I've been throughout this entire process trying to be very fair to the county, and my letter hopefully documents that, and I will continue to try to be fair and work with you on this.
All right, so we'll bring this back to our motion, our second, to move forward, accepting BKV's $19,000 offer.
Madam Chair,
Commissioner Delighten.
Commissioner Ketchmark just showed me what the additional cost was. It was $1,400.
$1,435.
To have it shipped within 1 to 2 weeks. Otherwise, normal would be 4 to 5. I'd say, let's just get it done. I mean, this has gone on long enough.
I agree.
Instead of pointing fingers, I want to solve the problem. Let's get it done.
All right. Yes, Sheriff.
Can I just add something real briefly, that the only reason that fast ship was even an option is because we were trying to get this done in April because of the contractor was already booked for this summer. So I appreciate Commissioner Delighten, your motion, but I think that staff could probably check with the contractor, and if the contractor's already booked until August, then it doesn't pay for us to spend the $1,400 and have it sitting in the garage. So thank you very much for your motion, and I appreciate the way you're thinking on this, but that was just, that was the fast ship option, was trying to get the stuff before the contractor was tied up. So thank you.
So that,
We'll leave it up again to purchasing to figure out what's going to be the best way based off of staff.
all right. Any more discussion? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
Aye.
All right, carries 4-1. All right, and then schedule the committee of the whole to review additional services. Do we have a date in mind?
Madam Chair, whatever works for you all, I'll make sure I'm here.
Saturday?
I'd love to be here Saturday, Commissioner.
I'm not.
We could either put this on after our workshop or on the 14th, if you want to move forward. We have a committee of the whole after our 21st meeting.
Do you want to hold it? I guess how far out do you want to go on this?
It doesn't matter.
Let's get it done with. Yeah, I'll make a motion to have a committee of the whole after the workshop on June 14th.
All right.
Figure 10:30.
We go 10:30 or should we go 11?
I don't know what's all going to be on the workshop schedule. Does anybody have an idea what we got scheduled for the workshop?
Offhand, I don't know how much there will be.
Let's just go 11
exactly.
o'clock.
Yeah, let's just do 11. That way we're not tying up other people or making them wait if we have a long workshop.
Does that work okay for you, Bruce?
Does that work?
Yes, Commissioner,
All
I
right,
can be there
so
for that.
11 o'clock on the 14th.
All right.
I'll second that.
All right. Oh, is that a motion?
Yep.
Okay. Motion made by Commissioner Delyden, seconded by Commissioner Vetch. Any more discussion? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
All right, that meeting's set.
Thank you.
We'll see you
Have
then.
a good day.
All right. Moving on to our item 1, discussion on the Government Center open house.
Thanks,
Go for it.
Madam Chair and Commissioners. Just a real quick update on the open house. The admin team's been looking at a couple dates, and we're looking at probably the 23rd or 24th of August in the evening per the Commissioner's request to have this occur in the evening. We're working right now to work that through our leadership team and make sure that everybody will be available for that so that the public will have the most access possible. And once we come up with a final date, we'll bring it back forward for approval by the board to get this scheduled.
I will just note that that week in there tends to be open house weeks at school. So I just know from, I wish we weren't going that late, but
So we don't have a board meeting on the 23rd that week, correct? We're looking August. right?
Correct. Yep.
There's no board meeting on August 23rd. Perhaps
really?
looking,
no, that's a budget week.
it's budget week, but we don't have board, so I think we're doing budget anyway. So we'll be here anyway. But
Madam Chair.
I think it would be good to look at school calendars maybe and see when their open houses are. Maybe gather up some of that information, Clay.
We can certainly do that, Madam
Yep.
Chair.
Madam
So,
Chair.
Yeah, Commissioner Wetter.
I still feel that since the constituents, everyone in Wright County has paid for this building, and the rest of the buildings in the campus, it should be on a weekend when more people could attend, because the evenings sometimes are full, like with kids in sports and stuff too, so.
Yeah,
I'm
there's
just-
sports on Saturdays.
Right.
I know,
You'll
I
never-
understand that, but I still think it should be available when people
Yeah.
might want to come, for the day.
One disadvantage perhaps on weekends in the summer, people leave. So,
I realize that too, but at least I think the opportunity should be there since, like I said, they paid for these buildings, and I think the more than just, are you saying just one night?
Correct.
I'm thinking maybe it should be like a night and we even mentioned that before, a night and maybe a weekend day.
Madam Chair, I just want to make sure we don't lose the scope of this, because just so everybody understands that with this open house, you're not going to be able to see any more or any less than you can on any general operational day. It's because this building is open to the public, and any space that's going to be available to the public on the open house days is going to be the same space that's available to them at this exact moment. The only difference is that there's going to be a little bit more of a pomp and circumstance to it, a ribbon cutting, a little bit more of a celebratory aspect to it. So I don't know that taking a great deal of staff time and doing a great number of days on it, that I don't know that that's necessarily going to be the best way for us to spend dollars on the building when it's available to people at any given day.
And then also I had the question, would it be just this building, or we once talked about the whole campus? Just this building?
Madam Chair and Commissioners, it would be the campus minus the sheriff's office who's having their separate open house. So it'd be the Justice Center and
Okay.
the Highway Building.
And so like one evening, if they really wanted to go through several of the buildings, I don't think that's enough time for some
If it's,
people.
3 hours or so, it should be fairly adequate time for,
Madam Chair and Commissioners, if, as Commissioner Vetch mentioned, if we're only giving tours of sort of the front of house, it shouldn't take more than 30 minutes, we figure, per building for people to see everything. There's just not a ton of space for people to walk through on the front side of the buildings.
Right. Yeah, thank you. Well, we'll wait for your recommendation when you do your research, and then we can go ahead with vote. So, Thank you. All right, we do have some committee of the whole minutes, or 2 sets of minutes. So Commissioner Wetter, you have the committee of the whole.
Yes, I do. That was when, that was on May 17th, and all the commissioners were present, plus some of the staff. The biggest thing was the election integrity discussion. And Rick Weeble, who's a South Dakota resident and director of the Midwest Swamp Watch, did a presentation. And this Midwest Swamp Watch was claimed that widespread voter fraud took place in the 2020 elections. And so now they're kind of changing what they're putting their focus on, and that was mainly on election integrity and election performance improvement plans. And so he presented this plan to us, and a good audience, because this room was pretty much full. And the county board had already addressed having party balance among the ballot boards and election judges, so we did well in that site. Wright County website was looked at for security, and he felt that if a county can't handle basic credit card security, how should it be expected to handle election security? And suggested was reevaluation of the use of drop boxes. And by statute, Minnesota only looks at 3% of the vote in post-election reviews. And he said the public has been denied to access machine logs, routers, and other equipment. And he felt that that should be available so that he could prove the election was secure. Minnesota has been asked to require certifications, he claimed that was a joke, because in statute, state political parties have the ability to review the source code, but so far none of them have. And they felt that it would cost about $1.4 million to review that. That would be the cost. There are 3 vendors in Minnesota. That's Hart, ES&S, which is Election Systems and Software, and Dominion. And he said that these poll pads were also wide open to hack. When someone votes, they don't get a receipt on what the machine actually said they voted on, and he felt that was a big problem. He also said poll pads can be hacked because they have a direct internet connection to the Secretary of State's office, and it transports that information live over the internet, and it's not certified. He stated he has evidence that this data is not secure and can be manipulated. Much equipment used in the election is susceptible to being hacked, and he said he owns a version of all 3 of those voting devices used in Minnesota. He purchased them on eBay, and all 3 were capable of being hacked. He also claimed that counting ballots is less expensive than a machine count, and he referred to a website called Frank's Speech, where the votes were flipped from one candidate to the other, including the 6,762 votes in Wright County. He also addressed the ballot drop boxes and said they should be removed because they are unsecured and video surveillance was not reliable. He also said since Minnesota only requires a 3% vote review and said several states have actually a higher review standard. So he said cities, counties, they could have a higher post-election review standard too if they wanted to. Then he asked that counties complete the voter history rosters before conducting the county canvass of votes. People said they didn't vote, but showed up as having voted, and also many people stated they did vote, but their names did not show up on the voter history roster. Commissioner Vetz would look for a work group, and he described the members that he would like to see in that work group. Many people then talked and expressed their opinions on at the podium, and we came up with a recommendation that it was the consensus to create a work group consisting of representatives of 2 county commissioners, a representative from each of the 4 major political parties in Minnesota, a representative of the Secretary of State's office, a member of the Performance Improvement Plan Group, members of the Wright County Elections and County Attorney's staff, and an outside legal counsel representative. I propose that these recommendations be put forward, and I'll make that motion.
Madam Chair, I will second it, and then I have a comment or amendment.
All right, so you're also moving approval of the minutes?
Yes, oh, I'm sorry, and I approve.
Madam Chair?
Motion made by Commissioner Wetter, seconded by,
And I'm going to make an amendment. I
Commissioner-
have a second, I'm going to make an amendment. We'll see if it's friendly to
All right.
Commissioner Wetter. Due to the nature of some of this and doing some additional discussion, I'm going to add a member from IT staff to the work
Oh,
group.
yes.
So is that a friendly amendment, Commissioner Wetter?
Excuse me, yes.
okay,
And then secondary for comment, but if I can wait and yield to Commissioner Dahlheiden.
Yeah, Madam Chair, I would like to separate the minutes from the recommendations.
all right.
That's up to the
Motion,
motion maker and the
motion
seconder.
maker in the second, are
Yes.
you willing to separate the minutes from the recommendation?
Sure.
Okay, so you're moving the minutes?
Yeah, I'll move that the minutes are approved.
All right. Motion made by Commissioner Wetter to approve the minutes. Is
I'll
that a
second
second? Commissioner Vetch? All right. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All right. The
And
minutes
then
are
I'll
approved.
I'll make the motion that the recommendations are also approved,
All right.
I'll second that.
with the addition of the IT staff person.
I'll second that.
All right.
Madam Chair. And
Motion made in
I do
second.
want to make some quick clarifications because there's a lot of things that were discussed and a lot of things are just
Yes.
thrown out there. And I do want to know, I want to at least peripherally put out there, I'm going to ask our IT director, Fambi, to address some of those accusations just because some of them are just on onset, not true.
And thank you
Yes.
for mentioning that because we did get a great deal of information about some of the claims that
But
are
do
not-
know that the reason this process has to take place is because of the large number of people that are losing trust in this system. And if means we have to bring transparency to it, to bring trust into it, then that is
Right.
what we have to do. Because if we don't, keeping the closed door is only going to solidify the perspective of people that the system is corrupt. And we need to make it more open-armed and more transparent and more education on what actually takes place behind the doors on elections. And Fambi,
Thank you.
our IT director, I'd like you to at least discuss some of those accusations that were made from an IT perspective.
Yes, sir. I looked over I apologize, I wasn't here, I was out of town when this happened. I looked over specifically some of the stuff relating to IT. What makes me very nervous is when somebody says credit cards and starts discussing security and they don't know what they're talking about, that causes a problem. There was a scan done on the front page of our website. I don't know why. We do not process credit cards from there. That would be like checking the status of the hospital operating room by looking at the parking lot. We process credit cards on different areas. Now, the other thing was some of the information displayed, while technically correct, was not entirely valid. It said that some forms of encryption were weak. That is technically true. Very, very weak forms of this encryption have been hacked before, but the stronger forms have never been hacked. If I lock myself out of my bathroom in my house, I can get into the door fairly easily. You're not breaking into the Lockomatic 4000 that easily. Just because one lock is open doesn't mean another one is. The forms that were shown are industry standards. The entire industry uses them. They would not be using them if they were insecure. So I don't know why credit cards were brought into it, but it makes me very nervous. We're checked every year, and you don't run a scan on a public-facing website and then say it has anything to do with credit cards if you have any functional knowledge of IT. It was a very weird claim. The other odd claim was that iPad 5s are not supported. iOS 15.5 rolled out 2 weeks ago, and it is loadable on iPad 5s. Just because the Ford 2022 F-150 came out doesn't mean the 2019 is no longer supported. You can still get parts. It still works. You will still change the oil. Some of these claims, they showed a production map and thought that the production map was the same thing as a support document, which I don't know how that mistake was made, but it was fairly rudimentary and fairly embarrassing. Our credit card support is very well done. The equipment we have here is very well supported, and from an IT perspective, I'm not sure where any of these claims came from.
Okay.
Any questions for me?
No.
No, thank you,
Madam Chair.
Matthew.
Commissioner Witter?
Well, I guess in reading, even rereading the minutes and looking at his demonstration, that presentation, I should say, that he gave, it seemed like he would say, Wright County did this, and so that's good. But then he went on to say a whole bunch of other things that made you forgot about what was good in Wright County, but he was, he had generalities that, to me, didn't pertain to us anymore when, that's my whole statement to it.
Thank you.
I didn't like the generalities that when he had already said that Wright County was doing a good job in certain areas.
I appreciate that, and I think that, that's what the work group can uncover.
Yep.
Is exactly, what is the truth? Because like we said then, we say now, that's what we all want. We want the truth. And, he was saying that we need to prove this. You need to prove that I'm wrong if I'm wrong. And so that's what we need to look at.
Madam Chair, oh, go ahead.
Go ahead, Dick.
I guess I wanted to put one part for the work group, and I've had a number of people at request that the Secretary of State's office have an opportunity to present. That invitation was sent. The invitation was sent for them to participate in the work group. We have had zero correspondence with them. I'm a little bit saddened by that. I hope anyone out there that has any pull in there can get them to have some correspondence with us, because we would like them to be inclusive and give them an opportunity as well to share their perspective.
Yep. Thank you. Mr. Dwight?
Yeah, Madam Chair, the reason I'm against it is because no matter what you do, it won't be enough. They'll never say that it was completely secure and perfect, no matter what you do, because the Supreme Court has turned down all the different choices now. I think it's a waste of time, because I don't think no matter what you do, you'll satisfy them.
But you know what? I think with the pieces that I looked at, the plan of attack and going after it is actually creating lanes and having people understand what things are decided with elections at a federal level, what things are decided at a state level in terms of elections, and what things are actually decided here at a county level, in creating those lanes and actually getting that, debunking the myth. And when the reality comes out and people realize that the decisions with elections that are actually made locally here are so minute and so small, we are almost entirely an administrative piece to it, in getting them to understand that any time that you spend in this room is largely not stemming the change that you desire. And I think it's important that educational process takes place. And
Yeah.
getting that information out there is important.
Yeah, that our information is out there already. And again, like I said, I don't think you're going to satisfy them no matter what you do. But that's my opinion. And I hope I'm wrong. I'm hoping that after you go through all this work, that everybody will be happy and they'll say, absolutely, yep, that's the way it was. But
Madam-
I don't think that's going to be the case.
Madam Chair, I think somebody in the audience wanted to speak.
It's
No, it's not a public hearing.
We don't have a public hearing.
I think it was in regards to the Secretary of State's office and getting correspondence from their office.
Yep. If it is, oh, okay. If you have a comment about Secretary of State correspondence?
That's what,
Yeah.
that's what I
Commissioner
thought.
Betch did pose that question, so she has the answer.
Yep.
Madam Chair,
Yes.
Commissioners, my name is Judy Gay. I live in Annandale. And I had the good fortune to talk face-to-face with Secretary Steve Simon at the DFL convention for a while. And I told him what happened here, and he's very aware of Rick Weibel and his presentations. He was concerned. I can tell you he is concerned. And he did say that his staff will be getting in touch with you, for sure. So I just wanted to relate that.
Okay, thank you.
Appreciate it.
Yes,
Good.
thank you.
Glad to hear that.
All right. So we have
I saw her.
a motion and a second for the recommendation to move forward with this work group with adding IT to the group.
Thank you.
There's no more discussion. All in favor?
Aye.
All right.
Opposed? Aye.
Opposed, thank you. It's been a long meeting, hasn't it?
It
All
has.
right, motion passes 4-1. All right, now we have personnel and employee relations minutes.
Okay,
Commissioner
Madam.
Betch.
All right, Madam Chair, I'm going to go through this relatively quick because a lot of items that were discussed.
Yeah.
The first is the hiring of a property appraiser in typical fashion that's happened here historically as our private ones cease or no longer service different communities. They end up coming to the county for the services for property appraising, and now Silver Creek and Middleville Township are now switching to using the county's assessor's office for appraising. So with that, it creates the demand for another position. This was kind of forecasted about a year and a half, 2 years ago, as a number of these private ones are looking to get out of the business. The second item was the review of the creation of the recommendation, the review of the creation of the raised group. The raised is the retain, attract, inform, support, and engage employees. So this was really to help us to get recruit and retention here in the county.
Yeah, understand the issues and why and what are the issues.
It was a very, very good meeting that we had on Wednesday, May 18th. We discussed and kind of collected a lot of information of things that should be discussed over the months, years ahead. Some of them will be easier to accommodate or make modifications to, and where other ones may be more challenging. But largely, we're trying to, promote healthy work environment throughout the county and addressing issues. The first one that we discussed was the bereavement policy, and it was a recommendation that came to the Personnel Committee to, the change would include bereavement paid time off. So the second one was a recommendation, was a modification to the personal leave policy. So there was some changes in that, and it was modified in 602. I'm not going to get into the exact language and the modifications to that, but you can see it in the recommendation to approve the revisions to policy 604 and to refer to staff 602 and 610 for further discussion and language clarifications, and bring it forward to the county board when the policies were approved. So that's actively being done. Discuss the process and methods to review and analyze needs in the future as far as GIS. So we've struggled from an employment perspective in the GIS department, and we had some discussions about when GIS kind of came to its fruition years ago and where it was placed and what it is doing now. It's kind of morphed greatly over the years, and trying to look at creating, as the demand has grown on it, and trying to create an intake system in a way to prioritize those projects as they come in, and looking at that it maybe no longer makes the most sense on having the GIS in the surveyor's department. And in the interim, the recommendation was to move the GIS department underneath the projects administrator for the interim period of time till they can do some vetting out and get an intake process created in a priority scoring mechanism, and then look at it with a future recommendation as to where it lives permanently from the positions. The other item that was discussed was the update on the highway finance centralization. So as we're still working on the centralization of finance and technology services in the county, largely stemming from the ERP and just looking to get the county in order with the county our size, we are starting to move forward with the moving of the highway department finance staff. It was just mostly informative, but it was also just to kind of formalize the approval to transfer highway staff, the 2 members, over to the finance department. The last item that was discussed was the consideration of revision to policy 310 to include sick time and time donation. There was a discussion about what the numbers were at currently and making modifications to recommend a maximum of 480 hours for a 12-month period donated to one employee would be the new cap. Employees wishing to donate must have 160 hours, and employees can one employee can donate up to 80 hours, was kind of the clarifications that came out of that discussion. So with that, the overall, I'll read over the recommendations one more time to approve the revisions to policy 604 and to refer 602 and 610 to further discussion and language clarifications, to approve the transfer of GIS positions over to project administration, to transfer highway department staff to the finance department, and to approve revisions to policy 310 to include sick time donation.
Yes, it was a lengthy meeting, a lot of discussion.
It was a good fruitful meeting.
A very good meeting.
And I'll second that motion.
Okay. Motion made, you make that motion?
Yep.
Motion made by Commissioner Vetch, seconded by Commissioner Leiden. Is there any discussion?
Madam Chair,
Yes.
if I may, as Commissioner Vetch mentioned, there was discussion about hiring that property appraiser, and I believe that there was consensus among the group to move forward with that. However, it didn't make it into the recommendations.
Oh.
So I may just add that you may want to amend that motion
Yes.
to include the hiring of that property appraiser.
Yes, I think that was, with reading through it,
I missed that too.
kind of, with your own mind, I kind of thought it went without saying, but yeah, we should have that at least notified.
Right.
Thanks for catching that.
All right.
Yeah, not much of a choice.
All right. Any more discussion?
Madam Chair, Commissioner Vetch, I also want to note that the first recommendation, policy 604, well, I think that's the personal leave one, or 602 is the personal leave. We actually put that on consent and you've already approved that.
That's what I thought. I thought I read that up there. I was thinking,
No.
so it really was,
Yep.
Well, it's one of those things where that is a true statement of what came out of the recommendation and out of the minutes.
because
But then
afterwards, we
staff met
discussed it
afterwards and we
after
were
the
able to-
meeting, and then it just kind of came to fruition much faster. And that's why I thought I seen it in the consent agenda earlier. but-
Yep, we approved that.
So just so you know, we have to keep the minutes accurate,
We
which
did.
we did here, but
Yep.
we put it on consent since that's what you told us to do in the minutes. So,
All right. Any other
How
discussion?
dare you do what we tell you to do?
Hearing,
you know, I'm sorry.
hearing no more discussion, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? All right.
Madam
It's
Chair,
approved. Yes.
as we
Commissioner-
move to the advisory committee minutes, I actually have to be at an energy transition meeting. I was supposed to be there 8 minutes ago.
All right.
I'm just going to quickly make a couple statements, and I'm going to have to run.
All right.
The first one I wanted to, the I-94 Coalition is tentatively planning a trip for the GAP funding to DC July 12th, 13th, 14th. They are looking to get a minimum 1 member, if not 2 members from each of the municipalities/counties involved in it. So we're talking about the gap from Albertville, St. Michael to Monticello and getting that 3rd lane. So there's some good opportunities from grant funding out there. So I know that Monticello, Otsego, and St. Michael have already solidified some people for attendance. I just wanted to have some discussion here if there's any interest on the board on having a member or a staff member attend this group out there in hopes of coming home with a win for funding and closing out that gap.
That's out of Washington, D.C.
That's
to
a
fly
DC
in.
That's a fly-in, yep.
Fly-in, okay. Thank you.
So
When you were going to go?
I'm throwing it out there for the group. I'm still in limbo as to whether I can make my schedule work on it. So
When were the dates again?
it was July 12th, 13th, 14th. It's a Tuesday in, Thursday out. We can send Mark, you, and Clay out there.
No, I wonder how maybe the highway people might have
Yeah,
an
it
interest
might be,
too.
that would be good. But I was gonna just get the discussion out there. I wanted to get that out in front of this group because to hopefully bring back a formal request next week, because the week after that being a workshop, and if they are gonna travel, we'd have to get that booked relatively soon. So just get everybody thinking about it. We can have some discussions, but we should try to get a formal request on somebody for attendance by the next board meeting. Then with that, Madam Chair, I will bring my advisory committee minutes back next week, and I'm going to try and make this meeting.
Okay.
All right?
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Vetch. Commissioner Wetter.
Okay, there was an MRC meeting on 5/23. There was no quorum, but it wasn't necessary because there was nothing to require a vote on anyways, so mainly we just went over the legislative bills that had been passed, and the only one is the broadband bill. And that was because it was in the drought relief bill. And right now, the Democrats and the Republicans, as you know, are worlds apart. And Representative Hortman wants a brief special session, and Senator Miller says, no way. So the feds are giving 110 that's all I wrote down, 110 million capital project funds, and the MRC wants all of that to go to the broadband, and governor, of course, says no way. He wants some to go into the intercity, and so the drainage work group that we were so concerned about, that portal list is dead for now because it wasn't worked upon. Then the 18th was the Historical Society meeting, and we learned we learned anyways that two are retiring from the Historical Society. One is the archivist, Betty Dirks. She'll be retiring August 5th. And then Kay Nordberg, who was the front desk and helped with research and also ancestry and that requests. And she's going actually June 3rd, so just a few days from now. And they've been just working on cleanup outside and doing plantings. That's all I've got to report.
All right. Commissioner Ketchmark?
Yes, Madam Chair. Well, as Commissioner Vetch advised, we had the raise work retention group met. Also, MRC met, talked about that drainage authority, but we addressed that on our own after that. Highway 12 Coalition met, and they reported that the fatality rate is way below where it was last year at this time. I don't know what all those causes are for sure, because you'd think there'd be more traffic on the road, people getting back to work this year than last year, but for whatever the reason, that was good news. And then they had a survey of residents on what type of road improvement they'd want on Highway 12 going east from Delno, and the majority wanted 4 lanes on Highway 12 going east from Delno, wherever they could get it. So MnDOT's going to take that information back and work on future improvements and dealing with that part of Highway 12. That's all I had, Madam Chair.
All right. Well, Commissioner Delyden is gone for a minute here, but yeah, I've been pretty busy with Buffalo Safe Schools, Annandale Safe Schools, and some of the same concerns have been going on with, making sure that we're addressing mental health issues, and vaping issues, which continue. Also visited Buffalo Township and Chatham Township, and the City of Buffalo gave them some updates of what's going on. And they always like to see our debt schedule and where we're at with that. So it shows them we're really in pretty good shape for a county our size. Let's see, I also went to Great River Regional Library, and we had a preliminary budget set for 2023, so that'll be approved later. And lots going on with the library system and different building project proposals, that sort of thing. Our Safe Communities of Wright County, we continue to work on the Wright Roads classes for both adults and the Wright Roads for Teens classes. They're very well received in the parent-teen classes also. So they all report that when they go through these classes, that it does open their eyes kind of and help change their driving behavior. And just getting out the crash car to different events and mock crashes, so they've been pretty busy. We write letters to the editor every month on some aspect of traffic safety, and that's about it, with some other meetings, but pretty much all I've got to report. Commissioner Delyden.
The Wellness Committee met on the 17th. Yeah, on the 17th. And they've been working with administration and facilities to come up with a survey for the employees on what food they would eat and use and for up in the lunchroom, and also to work with having somebody to come in with a coffee shop type.
Mm-hmm.
So since the employees would be utilizing it a lot too, we want to make sure that it'll actually get used, you know. So that'll help decide someone to come in too, knowing that 30% of the employees will do it, or 10, or nobody.
Are they perhaps having something that public also?
Yes, and you know, for
Yep.
the coffee shop type deal. And
Yeah, the
again,
coffee shop.
they're trying to figure out, and that's why, like I said, they're going to do a survey to figure out what the employees would do, and because that's what a captured
Audience.
business audience, yeah. You know, so that's would relate to, that would help bring somebody in. So whether it's soup and sandwiches or whatever the case may be. So
They-
I thought that'd be a good idea.
And they've talked to vendors, you know, local vendors also, I think, or in the past, so if they'd be interested in facilitating some of those
Yeah, they're also
sandwich type of things, or
Yeah, they're also looking at those food trucks
food trucks, yep.
coming in. So
Yeah.
they're looking at all sorts of different options there.
All right. Assistant Administrator Wilford, do you have anything that you'd like to add for updates?
Nothing that we haven't already covered in the meeting.
All right. Well, thank you, everyone, for your patience and hanging in there for kind of a lengthy meeting. But with that, we are adjourned at 11:18. Thanks, everybody.